blood versus blood, father versus son, and not just someone who's scripted to be your dad, but what if you and your actual father had a wrestling match? That is something that WWE is going to do, reportedly. Plus, we have news about someone you used to know as Daniel Bryan Danielson. The terms of his current All Elite Wrestling contract have been revealed by him. Plus, he sounds off on the recent wave of WWE releases and so much more just a few days away from the big All Elite Wrestling Full Gear pay-per-view. Plus, we have a lot more news to jump into. Get into it. Share the link so you don't stink and get on screen. It's Sportskeeda Wrestling. Top story of the day. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out, watch out, watch out. Do we need a watch out t-shirt? If we need a watch out t-shirt.
Do we need to make watch out shirts? I'm all about it.
If we need to do that, let us know. If you're watching our show, if you're with us, this is top story of the day. Do it. This is top story of the day. I'm Kev Kellam, Jose G, Jeremy Bennett with me. 3 different corners of America covering everything going on here in the world of wrestling. We do it 5 days a week, late afternoon time in the 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern hour. If you haven't done it already, go ahead and subscribe to the Sportskeeda Wrestling YouTube channel. We will be dropping an interview this week with a big name that just got drafted over to Monday Night Raw. And is going to be featured in some big matches here coming up with Survivor Series. So we're going to be talking to her. Keep an eye out for that. Is a huge name, somebody who had a massive match at WrestleMania this year. So when that interview drops, you'll be able to see it first. We also have an interview up right now with All Elite Wrestling's Billy Gunn. So that's really cool. We get some insight from him backstage. So let's get right into our lead story here. It was reported by Andrew Zarian of Wrestling Observer and Matman Podcast. Great guy. Best eyebrows in the business, I'll tell you. All right. Andrew has confirmed through a source, and in reporting this, that Rey Mysterio and Dominik Mysterio is going to happen. They are going to have a match, and this break up between the two will occur soon. This has been simmering for some time. Dominik Mysterio has been in the WWE system for some time. He is in his early 20s. I've been able to interview him in the past few months and lead up to a big WWE touring loop in December. And that'll be December 18th in Rockford, Illinois at the BMO Harris Bank Center. If you guys want to win tickets, go to theXrockford.com. So I'm interviewing him on that media tour, and I brought the topic up. You know, everyone's asking me to ask him about it. Is he going to wrestle his dad? And he said, I don't think that's going to happen. You know, they got to have this special thing and win the tag team titles together. Something I wish they got to do in front of fans, but, you know, Thunderdome, pandemic, all that stuff. And he had one of the biggest moments in the Thunderdome with no fans when he debuted at SummerSlam 2020 and debuted in the Thunderdome, no fans, on SummerSlam against Seth Rollins with his family at ringside. It's literally, I think, the best debut that WWE's ever had in terms of giving some guy everything they could possibly give in his first match. And he ran with the ball and did really well with it. Somebody would say that maybe he's cooled off since then, but that's fine. You know, that happens. What do you guys think of this? Jeremy, father versus son. Is this controversial? Because some people say, oh, this is cheap. This is just cheap heat. Me, I was like, you can't write a better story. Father versus son. You please don't mess this up, because to me, I think this has WrestleMania written all over it.
Yeah, I don't know how it could be cheap or anything like that. They've been planting the seeds for this for a long time now. We've all been expecting it. What we didn't expect is they're going to repackage Dominik possibly and have him as a masked heel. So it's going to be interesting to see how he changes. I think I remember him saying in an interview, it might have been with you, Kev.
Yes.
Didn't he say he wanted to wear a mask?
He wanted to wear a mask. He said that was something he wanted before his debut in WWE. He technically he did get physical Survivor Series in 2019, and there was some talk of him debuting before that. We didn't get into that, but it was well reported. They wanted to debut him long before SummerSlam, but they just they waited for SummerSlam. All right, this is as long as we can do it. We're going to do it now. And he had a long storyline with his dad. So they did all these different things. And now the story has evolved into him and his father kind of butting heads. And they're on a Survivor Series team together. They were up until Monday, and he got eliminated from that team. Bobby Lashley takes his spot. I think he'll still be involved in Survivor Series. And they've done some of those emotional splits. If Survivor Series is used to launch this storyline into the stratosphere, I'm on board, and I think you can ride this from November into WrestleMania. I don't think this is a Royal Rumble match. I think this is Rey doesn't want to fight his son, and his father wants to destroy the son wants to destroy the father.
Yeah.
Like this is reverse Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker type stuff, man. There's just so much you can do with this. There's so much real organic history. It leaps off the page as something that long hardcore fans want to see, and a casual fan will be like, wait, that's really your kid and you're gonna fight him? Like that's there, you can't recreate things like that. Jose, your take.
I think this is gonna end up being a really great story on camera. I think between November all the way to WrestleMania makes sense. And let's not forget, even though Rey can still go in the ring, he's getting up there in age, man. So you gotta ask yourself, is this the time for Mysterio to ride off into the sunset, pass the torch or the mask over to Dom, and Dom becomes the new Rey? That's something that could possibly happen down the line. We have seen Rey Mysterio in the past being unmasked in WCW. That was over 20 years ago. I think if we do another type of unmasking situation, but this time just kind of passing the torch, I think that could be a cool story to tell too, even though it's going to be father versus son. But if the son gets to win, Rey can ride off into the sunset while getting the mask from Rey. I don't know. I think this is going to be interesting in the long run, and we've already seen the seeds for it, just like Jeremy said a little bit earlier. I'm just really interested to see how this is all going to work out in the end.
Yeah, I think they could really start putting it into motion at Survivor Series, but then really ramp it into gear by having Dominik eliminate Rey from the Royal Rumble in January.
I mean, you can fantasy book this a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of time to tell the story. You can cool it off, you can heat it back up, and that's the thing about this is they could leave it alone, not touch it for a while, and pick it back up, which for WWE is really hard to do when you have so much content. They have so much weekly content. This is something, because they're father and son, you would immediately be right back into it. And you could maybe put Dom on a different show and let him do his own thing. Maybe he goes to NXT and he's there for a couple months and does some crazy stuff. I think Dom has a really great future. He's been raised in this business. This kid was cutting angles when he was a boy on television. You know what I mean? Like, and didn't even know how to so I mean,
good old Eddie, Uncle Eddie.
Like Ricky said in the chat, Dominik's Eddie's kid anyway. So
yeah. So it's worth noting, a couple years ago when I was at a previous site, I got to talk to Rey, and it was right around the time he was getting back into WWE. He had an injury. He was doing a charity event for autism, and it was this wonderful campaign. But he didn't mind talking in depth about his wrestling career and what he was trying to do, and he understood. This is likely my last wrestling deal here that I'm signing. And the whole purpose of this is to set my son up. And ideally, I want to have a WrestleMania moment with my son. And that's the way I want to end my career and have my son intrinsically involved in it and pass the mask on to him. Dominik alluded to something just like that as well, though he didn't clearly say it. And then they're not going to say, I understand Dominik on the record saying, I don't think this is going to happen. I understand it. I want to protect the business. Right.
Yeah.
But this is a kid who was doing that when he was a little kid. Right.
Plus that was probably,
so I'm on board for this. I actually think the storyline wise, this is one of the more exciting things that WWE's kind of like held as an ace for a while, and they haven't played it. I do think this is something you can play. I do think you do it in Texas, where there's a lot of Latin American fans that would turn out for this at WrestleMania and be really, really on board. The Mysterios are that multi-generational act in WWE, just like the Guerreros were in wrestling, where there are fans that are Latin American bilingual fans of multiple generations who I know they hold Rey in very high regard. He is very, very special to Jose. Jose, you can speak on this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Rey Mysterio in the world of Lucha Libre is definitely a huge figure, not only just from Mexico, but for all Latin America. When he won the world title years and years ago, that was a huge moment for all Latin Americans. When we see guys like Pedro Morales, who held that title, the WWF title back in the 70s, the first Puerto Rican to hold a major title in professional wrestling, and having someone like Rey Mysterio to represent all Latin people, all of it, it's a huge deal. And I think this is going to bring a lot of eyes to the product, just like when Bad Bunny teamed up with Damien, that brought a lot of Latin eyes to the WWE product. I think this feud potentially, if this is going to be like Rey's kind of final hurrah, this can potentially bring a lot of eyes to WrestleMania next year if this match goes down.
And you have 2 nights of WrestleMania. So, I mean, you can spread the attractions out and do some special things. I mean, after last week's negative news with WWE like laying some people off, this to me is exciting. Like I everyone I'm seeing about this, like, oh, this is kind of cheap, but I'm still on board. Like I've seen a lot of people say that, like, oh, it feels cheap, but I'm still intrigued by it. That's wrestling.
What do they mean by cheap though?
Oh, like look, they're exploiting a family, and like look how like weird this is. And it makes me
look at the McMahons.
Yeah, exactly. The McMahons fought each other. You had Vince
exactly. Shane versus Shane all the time. We've had that 3 times?
Yeah,
that was huge when they did Vince versus Shane. That was massive.
It brings eyes. It brings eyes to the product because you know what? There's a lot of families out there that are dysfunctional, and fathers hate their sons, or sons hate their fathers, or vice versa.
It's such a relatable point.
It's a relatable point. Exactly.
We haven't really seen outside. We haven't really seen a father-son feud with wrestlers in the WWE, at least
only
in a long.
Only the
McMahons. Yep.
Yeah. So obviously, it was the first time as a tag team, of course, too, and they did that. So now they're going to have, and this has to be WrestleMania. I would say this is like, you could have this main event night 1.
Can we pull up this question here from Jay Feliciano? This is a great comment. I want to kind of add this to
the
situation.
last comment.
This last comment right here from Jay. Jay, a man who knows a thing or two about the WWE. Jay goes, outside of father versus son gimmick, because it is a gimmick, will fans have a hard time booing Dom in the years to come if he's pushed as a heel? # white meat babyface.
Not if it's booked right.
Not if it's booked right. Even if there's some problems with the booking, and mind you, it's a long time to drag this story out. A lot of people say, oh, why don't they do long-term storytelling? Because there's so much television. Because there's just so much television.
He might not be believable as a heel right now, but that's maybe where you try to bring in a manager to bring in
some, like they alluded, Sami Zayn was getting in his ear saying like, are you sure you want to listen to your father like that?
Yeah.
And like have a bad negative influence and all those different things. Where Rey's like that enthusiastically positive guy. Like you need to have spirituality and faith and protect your family and be good to your friends. And Rey is the ultimate white meat baby face.
Yeah. And somebody in the chat mentioned
He's never swayed from that. Letting Dom go heel and then come back to the family and the father and the son fight. And I'm so sorry. And here's the end of my career. And even in you going this way, you coming back and fighting me, you've proved yourself. Now the mantle is passed, and like that, it's just, you can't, like, it writes itself to some degree,
somebody in the chat mentioned bring Chavo in. Of course, Chavo's probably done with AEW now, so he probably is free to come to work that. Like that could be a possibility.
That's family right there.
Yep.
That's family.
If I was Chavo and I could be a part of this angle, even for a short term, come on. Like,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
That'll bring a lot of eyes to the product. It would come WrestleMania season.
If you're listening on demand on the podcast, thank you so much. People putting us on the charts in the United States, Australia, Canada, Great Britain. Thank you so much. If you haven't done already, maybe you're watching the stream, you can't watch the whole show.
We're killing it in the Philippines, Kevin.
Philippines, dude. We're in the sports chart. Like we're
number
like
3.
We cracked the top 5 of all sports, not just wrestling, which is crazy to me. Thank you to all of our Filipino fans. Thank you guys so much. If you do support me, I will try and run for public office in Manila. All right, I will.
I don't know. You're gonna have to go up against Manny Pacquiao, and that guy has a mean punch.
No, I'm gonna lose comptroller. I'll lose the local dog catcher role to like Manny Pacquiao's cousin or something like that.
Before we move on to our second story, I got to give a huge shout out to the new super middleweight undisputed champion of the world, Canelo Alvarez, who had an incredible fight this weekend, getting the technical knockout in the 11th. Man, that was just a fantastic fight.
TKO knockouts, that is the sweet science to a degree, right? The technical knockout, right?
Not only that, dude, the guy has 7 different championships in different divisions. Undisputed. The guy is the real deal. Congratulations to Canelo. Viva Mexico. All right, let's jump into our next story, guys.
Let's get right into it. Daniel Bryan, now once again, Bryan Danielson in All Elite Wrestling. He went on the record this week with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour, and this is in the lead up to All Elite Wrestling's big pay-per-view this weekend, Full Gear. Danielson will be in the world title eliminator final against Miro. That was originally scheduled to be Moxley, but more importantly, in this interview, you got a lot of insight from Danielson now, a few months into his All Elite run here. He clarified that his contract that he's currently on is for 3 years and could keep him in the company into 2024 when he would be at the age of 43. He did note, talking to his wife when he signed this deal, that they believe this would be his final wrestling contract. Notice the words wrestling contract. There was no, preface to anything else that could happen there. He did also address the WWE releases that happened this last week. And he kind of said he has a different perspective on it. While he was in WWE and he was released by the company twice himself, very early in his career, he got a deal with WWE, like fresh out of training, learned a lot from it, and then went and became an even better wrestler, Ring of Honor, New Japan, all these different things, right? Found his way into WWE again, got released under controversial circumstances when he thought he was doing something he was supposed to do, and, all that different stuff. Comes back and becomes a huge superstar, could have stayed with WWE. Notes the New Japan rumors that someone on this channel told me wasn't true. From the man himself were confirmed to be true. That yes, indeed, WWE and New Japan were talking to each other because he was asked, what does your deal entail? You're with them for 3 years. What does this entail? Does it allow you to go to Japan? He says, yes, it does allow me to go to Japan. If the company approves it, I can go and have a match in Japan. And that was also on the table with WWE. That was also something WWE was going to let me do, which would have been wildly exceptional.
That would have been great.
And the WWE doesn't let anyone do that in like over 25 years, let alone
you imagine Daniel Bryan headlining a Wrestle Kingdom in early January,
huge.
And then headlining a Royal Rumble later that month in WWE.
It'd be massive.
That would have been incredible.
Would have been massive. And mind you, he's probably could still be there. Could still be there too, right? So that's confirmed there, and that was on the table. Getting back into the releases, though, they're asking about all these different things in his deal. He says he was disappointed. He was released twice by the company himself. I got off point there, right? But he says he understood at the time that it's a company, there's good people there, but they're a corporation, and corporations do things that people don't do. Like they don't have empathy. Corporations put profits first. That's a part of America. He's talking about culture and money and all these different things. And then he notes he's learned a lot from Vince McMahon. He deeply respects him and all that different stuff. But now he looks at All Elite Wrestling. He's like, they've only released people because of disciplinary problems or because of just other situations, not just like, hey, we're letting people go. They kept everyone under contract that they have. But it's worth noting, I got to tell people this. Everyone thinks, All Elite Wrestling is really sweet to people. They have a lot of people under contract for sure. But a lot of those contracts are dates. Like, so that you can't wrestle elsewhere. Here's where you can't go, but we're only paying you per date. That's what I've been told by some people, right? There's plenty of people that are like that. And there's plenty of people that have guaranteed salary deals too. So it's a tiered system. So if you're at a certain tier, you're making better money and you're getting guaranteed money. There's other people are not. So and they're still making good money. They're on television and they can work certain indies. Obviously, AEW have a lot more freedom to do a bunch of different things that you would in WWE in terms of where you can work and do other stuff, right? I worked a show with Eddie Kingston on it like a few months ago. So it's worth noting that. So a lot to talk about here. What do you think of Bryan Danielson now in All Elite Wrestling, Jeremy?
Well, and one thing he brought up in that interview that was pretty key was like, he says that if you can't go work for 90 days when you get fired by them, you should be able to give them a 90-day notice if you're not happy with your job. And I thought that was kind of a key thing that he said in that interview, that wrestlers that are unhappy with the company should be allowed to walk after within 90 days of their contract expiring. And I thought that was kind of an interesting take that nobody's really ever brought up in these type of situations.
I've never heard anyone bring that up, right? Have you ever heard that?
No, and I think that's an excellent take on where this generation of professional wrestlers are, not only from on a career standpoint, right? But they're also thinking about their future. So now that we have, this two big companies now, AEW, WWE, the WWE right now is pretty much praising profits over morale because that's what Daniel Bryan is perceiving as, right? And let's get real. That's what, the culture is in the United States. Capitalism.
It's also the market.
Profits.
It's also the market for televised wrestlers, before the pandemic.
Exactly.
He's saying WWE was shoring up people in contracts because they didn't want them to go to All Elite Wrestling, right? And now they realize we have too many people under contract. We're not on the road the same way we were. We're not doing house shows where we could use these people if they weren't on TV, right?
But then they report $215 million, $55 million worth of revenue in the last quarter, which is
on the
a
surface,
lot of
big
money.
conflict there. What's going on? Even from us looking at on the outside looking in. Yeah.
So that raises a lot of eyebrows. And, when Daniel Bryan says something like that, like I mentioned, it really says something about where the culture is in the wrestling business. Because even like Xavier Woods himself, like he's planning for retirement and things like that, like what he's going to do after WWE. And it's just a mindset. So I think when you ask, well, if I'm not happy with my job, I'm going to give you a 90-day notice, kind of being courteous as opposed to I'm just going to stand up and walk out. I think that actually works a lot. That's really good from Daniel Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
It would be exceptional. It would be exceptional. And there's a lot of things he was very revealing in this. He's just one of those guys that you're not going to, I don't want to call him a company guy. I don't even think he's a company guy for all the wrestling. I think he's comfortable. I got paid a lot. I get to wrestle people a different way. I get to have different matches with different people. I wouldn't be able to have these in WWE. Also, I think he made the exit right. What do you think, Jeremy? He says, I'm under contract with him for another 3 years. Do we ever see him in WWE again?
I don't know.
I'd say it's up in the air.
Yeah, I say the door's open for that, and I don't know. I don't necessarily think this could be his final contract either. He says that, but he's been reinvigorated with the matches that he's had in AEW, and he's yet even to go to Japan yet, and that's probably going to be coming up here in the next couple of months. So this may not be it for him even after that 3 years is up, but I could very well, the door is open, so I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to say it's a complete no, like CM Punk is never going to go back there. Daniel Bryan may go back there, but I don't think this is his final wrestling contract, to be honest.
No, I don't think so either. I think I could see him signing up for a handful of different things and having like a gallop off into the sun in WWE, And I don't even think if you're an AEW loyalist, you'd be upset about that.
Yeah, he could do an Edge deal probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if he stays healthy, if he stays healthy and he had all those different injuries, he's been through a lot in his career, before he even got to WWE. So it's worth noting there. Let's get into this story. WWE NXT, the 2.0 makeover is moving on, and it's kind of confusing what's going on here. They announced an annual show they do around Survivor Series every year. This one will have a couple of weeks separation from Survivor Series, going down the first week of December. It is NXT War Games. That is what has been marketed as. This is the
War Games.
War Games.
War Games.
So War Games has been a fun show for the NXT brand for a couple of years. I've seen one live. It was really, really cool. It was one of the best WWE shows I've ever seen is War Games. And I'm looking forward to this. It's not clear if this is going to be outside of the Performance Center. That's a small space to get a War Games inside of, by the way. They've done it before. They did it before.
They did it in the black and gold version. I'm sure they could pull it off here.
I'm sure they can pull it off here, but it would be cramped. Like that would be a cramped space to work in, But it was also one of the better shows during that time too. I'm of the thought. I know people are freaking out. How can you take the takeover thing off of it? I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I know you guys. We were talking before we went live here. There's a possibility this could still be called a takeover, but just War Games is what they want to focus on. But it looks like it's just called War Games.
Yeah, it looks like. Well, social media had put takeover on it, and then the updated another post had taken it off of it, and of course the graphic doesn't have it, so it doesn't really surprise me if takeover is removed from it, just because with NXT 2.0 going in a different direction, it doesn't surprise me that they take the takeover name off of it. The interesting thing is they really don't have anything hot on the male side to make a War Games out of. Now, you easily can do it on the women's side with Toxic Attraction and maybe throw Dakota Kai in there, and they take on, Io Shirai, Raquel Gonzalez, and probably maybe Catanzaro and Caden Carter. But the men, there really hasn't been a hot, big feud like there had always been when you had the Undisputed Era there.
When you had Undisputed Era versus McAfee Squad, that made sense. When you did Undisputed Era versus all of the top guys in NXT, that made sense. The first one they did when it was 3 different teams, there were 3 different factions. You can say this about NXT. They have pairings. Toxic Attraction is a big faction, but it's all the women.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly you can do the women versus. You can do Toxic Attraction versus handful. So of people.
I don't know if they do it as a team led by Ciampa against a team led by Braun Breaker. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, at least I think
I'm
they
more
have.
inclined to think they go with Carmelo Hayes versus Johnny Gargano or something like that.
Possibly, yeah. And that's going to look well. I mean, actually, that at War Games, that's probably going to be a triple threat for the North American. So I don't think they're going to be involved in the War Games match at all. I think we're going to get Dunn, Gargano, and Hayes at War Games, a triple threat for that title. So that takes them out of that match. So they really got to start setting those seeds starting next week. With trying to get some sort of teams. My gut is it's going to be a Braun Breaker team against a Ciampa team, because they made it clear that feud ain't over yet. So I'm thinking that's going to be the direction, and then we start filling out the teams probably as early as next Tuesday once we start seeing that stuff play out.
Or they do something crazy. They do something crazy, and you have a singles match in there. You don't have like a straight up, barn burner match with 10 million people in it.
Yeah, but it's a War Game, so you got to have
War Games, bro. You got to have 10. You got to have at least 8 people.
You got to have the 4-on-4 or 5-on-5. Yeah,
absolutely.
Of course, we have other people. Steven Chambers saying, add Kaylee Ray, Cora Jade to the mix for War Games. Yeah, they are some of those new names that have been introduced. Kaylee Ray has been in the mix for NXT. She was the champion of the NXT Women's Champion for a long time. Cora Jade, I think, is a real upside. She's very young, has a different look. There's a lot of people I've seen that love AJ Lee. They love the rough, tough rock and roll chick vibe. They're going to get that with her. That scratches an itch for some people that are Diva fans. She'll be a part of it there. Another one here from Jay saying, NXT talent wrestling tonight at AT&T Stadium for the Mania promo event. Yes, there is a WrestleMania marketing event that many, many big names are at, including The Undertaker and Big E, Stephanie McMahon, hitting that up on social media. They do have NXT talent for that. They got a pre-sale locally in Texas.
Got a ring set up at the 50-yard line,
which is pretty cool. Like even if it's it's a free event, if you buy tickets to WrestleMania, you get to see this free little show, and you can get pictures and stuff like that. Yep. A couple months, it's fun. That's fun marketing stuff. It makes it fun to go to the stadium to buy something. Did
you guys see that gigantic championship belt on the field?
It looks cool. I saw it.
No, I haven't seen that.
It's massive. It's it's easily 40 by 15 feet. It's a really, really huge thing, and just looks fun.
Stephanie McMahon posted it on Facebook, on Stephanie's page on Facebook. So,
WrestleMania once again 2 nights. That is the part of the official media blast this week across the board in mainstream media, and this will go down in early April. They'll be running AT&T Stadium, so this could be one of the biggest WWE attended events if you consider 2 nights in a row. So they would have over 100,000 people 2 nights in a row.
I was there for the last one.
What was the experience like there at AT&T? There's so many people.
It's pretty cool. I mean, we were in the 200. Crap. We were in the 200 level. So that goes up to 400. And so we were in the 200 level. So we were pretty low down, still far away because it's a huge place. But it was really cool. I mean, just walking into that stadium for the very first time was just mesmerizing. And you'd think the prices of things at AT&T would be jacked up. Well, it was pretty reasonable. Beer, pizza stuff was pretty reasonable. And
stadium prices.
It was just there you go, right there.
You had to look at that, huh? That is something else. This massive, for the people in the podcast, this massive belt they made. This is just something you want to have your picture taken in front of.
Crazy.
You want to have your picture taken.
You want Kevin Owens to jump off of that.
Yes.
It's crazy because in Orlando, when they were here in 2017, they had a huge belt down in Lake Eola in downtown Orlando. It's ginormous. And it was kind of looked just like that, but it was specifically for Orlando. It was kind of a great prop. I tried to find one in Tampa, but I didn't think they had one like that for Tampa.
True. It doesn't look cheap to make that at all.
No.
And of course, you think of it, after the holidays, WrestleMania season will be right here. So, get ready for it. Tickets go on sale on Friday, by the way, to the public. So I always tell people about this. Oh, should I go to WrestleMania? I don't know. I'm not too into WWE. I think any lifelong wrestling fan should try to go to one WrestleMania. Even if you don't love the WWE, it's WrestleMania. It's a
spectacle.
It's a spectacle. You're always going to see WWE try and put sometimes they try, and maybe it's not the best WrestleMania they've ever done. But we're wrapping up here. Go get your tickets for WrestleMania. It'll be worth it. Spend a lot of money. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at Jose G Official. You can follow Jeremy Bennett at JB Huskers. Of course, get the podcast. Where can they get it? Tell them about it.
Guys, you can get the podcast, the Sportskeeda podcast. You can get it on any major podcast. You can do it on iTunes, Spotify, everywhere. Are we on Spreaker too? We're on all of them, right? We're on everywhere. So
We're on
just
all
get
of
the
them. We're going to be on
podcast.
Stitcher. We're going to be on Stitcher soon. Yeah.
So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You can subscribe to my podcast, my show, Recons of Wrestling, on YouTube and on Facebook every Thursday night, 8 p.m. We are live. This week, we're going to be recapping the entire week of wrestling and everything that went happened over the weekend. What about you, Jeremy?
We are going to get in that studio and record Lost in the Midcard tonight after Dynamite, and that'll be out for your listening or viewing pleasure early evening on Thursday. Matt and I are going to predict the card. We were off last week since I was sick, so we'll probably talk about the WWE releases real quick as well. So just search for Lost in the Midcard. For the podcast, make sure you hit the new feed. Also, we're on the YouTube for the video version as well. Search for Lost in the Midcard there as well.
And a quick reminder, guys, tonight we got the debrief. We're going to be covering AEW Dynamite. That's tonight at 10:05 p.m. with myself, Enrico El Glorioso. So that's going to be going down tonight. We're going to be recapping what happened last night on NXT 2.0 and everything that went down tonight on Dynamite. Also, a lot of content dropping this week. Sid SP3 is going to be dropping the predictions for All Out later this week. We're also going to have the All Out post show. That's going to be Saturday night. Kevin's going to be on it. Rick's going to be on it. Jeremy's going to be on it. You guys are going to be killing it. So I'm excited for this pay-per-view. Unfortunately, I won't be able to catch it on time, so I got to watch it Sunday morning.
That was me with the last one, All Out. I was gone for Labor Day fun, and so I had to catch it on the flip side.
Don't worry, we'll ride out the party. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. If you haven't done already, go ahead and subscribe to Sportskeeda Wrestling on YouTube. And remember, when watching wrestling, do the most important thing, whether it's called a takeover or a war games.
War games.
War games.
War games.
War games.
Jeremy, tell them what they got to do.
Enjoy wrestling.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Quittens.